If you want to build systems in your business, you need to consider 3 critical steps. Without them, it can almost be impossible to get it right, because any system you want to build directly ties into processes and other layers of your operation, like policies or SOPs. As IT department head and transformation manager, it was my job to make sure systems we built worked from day one. And I learned the hard way that if you don't get the 3 steps right, things go off the rails pretty fast. We're talking performance drops of 20% or more, people refusing to adopt steps, and frustration up and down the whole hierarchy. To avoid that happening in your case, we're going to talk about the 3 steps and how to build systems properly. So keep watching. Alright, a system is an interconnected set of processes, people, technology, and resources. So we have a lot of movable parts here. And I definitely suggest you watch this video to get the full breakdown of a system and other parts that make up business operations. For now, let's start by looking into processes, okay? A process is a series of actions taken in order to achieve a particular outcome repeatedly. Simply put, it's a bunch of steps you take in the same order to finish something again and again. People, in this case, are the individuals who end up using the system, or better, who apply the system to achieve a certain goal. Technology, we can also call the tools to make the system work, and resources are the things we need to keep the system running. Just picture an office printer as a system in and of itself. One of many processes in this system is refilling the paper tray. Until we have humanoid robots who can do that for us, people will be the ones putting the paper in manually. The printer is the piece of technology, and paper is one of the resources we need to keep the printer running. And this is a super simplified summary, of course, but it illustrates nicely how the different components of a system interact with each other and make it work. Take any of the components out and the system stops working. Now, we can use this fact as the first step to build a system for our business. If one component is missing, the system won't work. Which means we need to document the components that are involved in whatever system we have in mind. What exists in the system and how does it work? The idea behind doing this is to make the system repeatable, so someone else who is not you can run the system without guessing. In this video here, I talk about the 5 essential systems you need to build in a solo business, and the first one was lead generation and marketing. Let's use that same example to walk you through the steps here. The purpose of lead generation and the marketing system is to build awareness about products and services and also attract potential customers. To do this, we need to map out what processes, people, technology, and resources we need to get the job done. Since we're dealing with a solo business, we assume for the moment that the people component will just be you, for simplicity reasons. You get to wear the hat of marketing manager, content writer, sales rep, ad specialist, and IT guy. So with that component checked, let's look at technology next. You'll definitely need a website or a landing page, an email automation platform, and social media accounts like Instagram or LinkedIn. Resources will be things like your actual lead magnets, the free guides and templates you trade for people's email addresses. But also basic things like money to pay for the software subscriptions, and your time that goes into creating lead magnets or learning how to do lead generation in the first place. And just like that, our system looks pretty good already. Of course, I left the biggest component for last, and that's processes. They are the key ingredient really that we're still missing. So aside from documenting just components, figuring out what processes are part of the system is really where you should spend most of your time on. Every step needs to be written down or visualized, and it doesn't matter if you use a fancy software to build swim lane diagrams or draw on a piece of paper or write a bullet point list even. What matters is that you capture every single step. That's the bare minimum requirement, to have every step documented. In the context of lead generation, a process can look like this: traffic generation, lead capture, lead nurturing, sales handoff, and tracking. Those are big picture steps, and of course we can break them down into smaller steps. For instance, traffic generation turns into create ad campaign, ads run on Google, prospect clicks ad. Lead capture turns into prospect goes to landing page, prospect fills out form, data goes into CRM. I think you get the idea. Now, in real life, you would go and break down the steps of the process in more detail, depending on what type of software you use or what type of lead magnet you have. For now, we need to move on to step 2 of building a business system, and that's testing it. I can tell you from personal experience that this one is really important. I spent weeks creating systems entirely by myself, and when the people who had to use it got involved, it fell apart within minutes. Simply because I looked at the system with a manager mindset and not through the user perspective. I merged steps, I skipped steps that were intuitive to me, but they were unclear to the user with a different level of experience. So for your solo business, you're the one building the system and your user at the same time. But that doesn't mean you can skip the testing. When I started out on YouTube, I really wrote fancy scripts. They read well, but when it came to listening to myself during the editing phase, it sounded like crap. As it turns out, I write differently than I speak, and I didn't account for that during script writing. And the same concept applies to business systems. The way they're built on paper is not necessarily the way they work in real life. Chances are you get close, but the devil is in the details here. Meaning you need to do a dry run of your system after you build it. And if you want to get really fancy, you have someone else test it for you. Someone who's not familiar with the steps at all. And if that person can go through the process and achieve the result you want at the end, then you can be sure your system is ready for implementation. Always keep in mind that systems you design today are business assets of tomorrow that will allow you to remove yourself from the process eventually and have someone else or something else take over. So putting effort into getting this right early on pays big time the moment you think about scaling your operation. Once you're done testing, it's time to take the system live, which brings us to the third and final step. Improve what you've built while the system is live. Use continuous improvement in form of a cycle. Test, run, improve again and again until you iron out the kinks. And this is the part where you ask questions like, how can I make this step clearer? How can I make this simpler? And that's always a big one. Think simplicity. Where can you cut out steps or merge them together in any way? Can you swap out a piece of technology? Like when I think about lead generation, I automatically consider an email client, a landing page builder, a CRM. Do I need 3 different tools for that, or is a single tool available that accomplishes all parts? So when you have low landing page conversion, what can you do about it? Simplify the form where people put in their email, rewrite the headline, add more social proof. Think about things like that. Document, test, and improve. Those are the 3 critical steps you need to consider if you want to build a business system for yourself. I asked ChatGPT to generate a graphic for you, and it shows all the steps again with more detail than I mentioned so far. I hope that helps you. If it did, please consider subscribing or leave a comment below. I'm going to put out more videos just like this one, and your feedback helps me a lot to improve the content. In the meantime, watch this video next that YouTube is suggesting to you here, and I see you there.